everybody, it's so good to be back with you with another daily Devo. My name's Pastor Benjamin. I'm the associate pastor at Lakeside, and today I want to talk a little bit about how we can use communication to share the love of Jesus with those around us. Now, no matter where you live, you're probably spending a little bit more time at home than you're normally comfortable with, and this is especially true for those of you who might be working from home. You're probably doing a lot more communication over the phone and email and texting and even over social media than you normally do. And social media is a platform where people often express themselves a little bit more freely, a little bit more openly than they would in person. And they often say things that they wouldn't normally say to people in person. And you might say that, we live in a free country, and so we have the freedom to say what we want to who we want whenever we want. And while that may be true from a legal standpoint, if you've been in the Bible long enough, you've probably learned by now that just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should do something. Paul puts it like this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23. He says, "All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up." In the CEV translation, it says it this way. "Some of you may say, we can do whatever we want, but I tell you, not everything may be good or helpful." And in the very next verse, Paul says this, "Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor." So what Paul is saying is that even though you have the freedom to do whatever you want, that doesn't mean that you should do it. The question you should ask before you do what you want is this good for my neighbor? Now, who's your neighbor? Your neighbor is anybody who you rub shoulders with or communicate with, whether that be physically or digitally. And so that's people who you interact with in your texts, emails, and even on social media. So what this means with communication is that just because you can say something doesn't mean you should say that thing. Anybody else ever on social media and you read something and you think, "Oh, I've got the perfect response for this"? If that's you, drop a comment below. Say, "Hey, that's me, Pastor. Sometimes I tend to turn into a social media lawyer, if you will, and let people know what's what." But just because you may adamantly disagree with somebody on a particular topic, whether it be the government or politics or even Tiger King, that does not give you the right to be hurtful toward other people with your words. That doesn't give us a license to use words that are hurtful toward other people. Today I want to share a verse with you out of one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's from Ephesians chapter 4, and it's verse 29. It says this, "Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." Now, this verse says out of your mouth, but keep in mind, this was written in a time that was just a little bit before computers and cell phones were created. So this principle also stands true when it comes to written or digital communication. This other translation from the BLB, it says this, "Do not let any unwholesome word go forth out of your mouth," or into your keyboard, "but only good for edification of the need, so that it may give grace to those hearing," or reading. The NIV version ends by saying that it may be helpful to those who listen. And I love how the CEV version simply says, "Help others by what you say." Now, I know what some of you are thinking, right? Aren't we supposed to always speak the truth? Well, there are times to speak truth, yes, but the Bible tells us to speak the truth in love. What we're not called to do is speak the truth in anger, or speak the truth in frustration, or, get this one, speak the truth in rudeness. So Jesus was a perfect example of this, right? He actually sought people out who were different from him and had different opinions and lifestyles. And he made it a point to connect with them in such a way that he could build them up. Some examples are the woman at the well, or Zacchaeus. And there were plenty of other examples of people who were sick, people who actually oppressed Jesus and his disciples, and people who were very different from him. And the disciples, they were actually dumbfounded. Every time Jesus would go out of his way to build people up who were different from them, they could not understand it. It didn't make sense to them. But time and time again, Jesus is the example of us in this. And he shows us how to spread the truth in love and grace. And he did this time and time again with people who nobody else wanted to communicate with, people who nobody else wanted to be nice to or kind to. And as a result, he led people to love and grace, people who nobody else wanted to talk to because of their different lifestyles or different political standings or different morals or different beliefs, different races, or even different opinions. So here's my challenge and my encouragement for you today. As you communicate via text, email, and on social media, where people often have lots of unpopular opinions that you're going to disagree with, ask yourself these questions before you choose your words. Do they build others up? Do they give grace to those who hear? Are they helpful? Do they edify? And do they benefit those who listen? As Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 says. Because if the answer is no, you just might want to hit the backspace button on what you've just typed. Friends, you don't have to stand on the corner of a street with a megaphone to evangelize and share the love of Christ with people. We can be Jesus to those around us and those on social media and those that we interact with digitally by sharing the love of Christ with them, even when they have opinions that are unpopular or that we disagree with. Church, I love you. We'll see you guys again tomorrow.